All right, what's up, everybody? We just went live here, and I'm going to go through and add in our folks over on Facebook and on Twitter, and then we're going to get started. Thanks so much for jumping in here. All righty. We see some people starting to jump in. Welcome in. All right, and we are live. What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett Chapman, and this is the Falcons Podcast here with Falcons on SI. Not a great Tuesday podcast here today. I like these Victory Tuesday podcasts. I normally like to get in here and, talk about a Falcons win. But after what we saw on Sunday, I don't think it may be a little while before we see one of those. Maybe not, but we shall see. We'll talk a little bit about what we saw on Sunday, the disaster of a performance against the Miami Dolphins, a game that I think is the worst performance of the 2025 season. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. But we will also get into kind of an update on where the Falcons stand injury-wise, kind of whether or not the playoffs are even in the cards anymore. I'm coming to you from a very chilly Atlanta, Georgia, where it's been, if you're in the Atlanta area, you know that it's been pouring down rain for the last 2 days. And I kind of think that that's symbolic of kind of how this city's feeling about the Atlanta Falcons. It's cold, it's dreary, it's wet, and it's depressing. And that's kind of what the vibe is up at Flowery Branch. All right, we'll get into all of it. Give me a follow at GChatBTL. This is the Falcons Podcast with me. And look, I'm going to answer your questions throughout the show. I'm going to try to get to as many as I possibly can. If you want to drop in a super chat, if you're over there on YouTube, that's the number one way to get to the top of the list. And we'll get to your questions. If you have something that you want to say, something you want to ask, anything at all, just drop it in here and we'll check it all out. All right, let's start here with everything. Let me see. I see Derek Hart 7733 says he's speechless. I was speechless, and I was trending closer to angry on Sunday because, look, I am a Falcons fan deep down. I mean, I'm from the Atlanta area. I grew up a Falcons fan. Piece of me really wants to see him win, and that's a big piece of me. And it was brutal. That was a bad performance. But again, like I said, we're going to get into it. Michael Baxter over there on Facebook says, good evening, Garrett, and everyone at Atlanta Falcons on SI. Good evening. Wish it was a better evening for some folks, but here we are. Austin Georgia Bully Dog, a mouthful, says trash team. No, not quite there yet. This team still has something that they can achieve this season. I still think they can do something. It's just, can they? Because this is still the team that beat the Buffalo Bills. We assume they still beat the Buffalo Bills. Unless I'm crazy and I forgot. This is a team who goes down to the wire with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Washington Commanders. I get it. They didn't have Marcus Mariota on that team, but they still had just about everybody else. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird. It's inexplicable. And one stat that I put out there, Austin, is, they're plus 20 in scoring margin when you talk about the rest of the teams on their schedule. You talk about the Commanders. You talk about the Vikings, the Bills, the 49ers. Teams, even if they lost to some of those teams, that's not the point. They were in the football game. It was a good game against the Panthers and the Dolphins. Fundamentally, the two worst teams on your schedule. Minus 54. It's not even that you lost. It's that you got blown out. It's that you got absolutely blown out. Derek Hart 7733 says changes need to be made. 3 and 4, not going to cut it. Changes aren't going to be made. We'll talk about the conversation that the centered around Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. Raheem Morris addressed the situation. We talked to him about it on Monday, and we'll discuss it here on the pod today. Derek keeps going, says W the talent, or with the talent, W the talent. I'm young enough to understand that. Come on now. With the talent, we should be 4 and 3, 5 and 2 easily. I mean, theoretically, yes, but this is still the NFL. The great teams still lose. I mean, bad teams lose, good teams lose, everybody loses. It's just the nature of the beast. It's what you do. It's what happens. I agree with you. I think the team should be in a better situation. Confidence-wise, this team is not moving in the right direction right now. But things change quickly. It's a week-to-week business. It really is. And honestly, they can go on the road and they go beat the New England Patriots, and every bit of this mood is going to change. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm saying damn well could, because the reality is they're 5-point favorites right now. That's less than a touchdown. That's big in the NFL because anything can happen. There's a reason they say any given Sunday. Things can change in a heartbeat. Michael Ronquillo hits up with the hearts. Appreciate you, my man. Welcome in. Welcome in. Yes, Majors goes through, says, good evening, Derek. I think most people expected them to lose against the Dolphins. That's why we're frustrated. I don't think most people expected them to lose. Against the Dolphins. I certainly didn't. Just about everybody that I talked to certainly didn't. They certainly didn't. I understand that they had lots of injuries. They piled up on them, but at the end of the day, that's a Dolphins team that came into the game on Mercedes-Benz Stadium, a home game, theoretically, 1-6. 1-6. It's not good enough. And the performance that you put up on the field is, again, not good enough. All right, let's talk about that performance. All right, you lose this game 34-10. If you still have comments, if you still have questions, other stuff like that, make sure to drop it in there. Make sure to share the podcast too. We're just getting underway. Appreciate anybody who wants to push it to their friends. Maybe hit that share button. Maybe hit the retweet. Maybe just tell people, hey, come on, jump in. Let's jump into the Falcons podcast. But make sure to subscribe to the podcast as well, especially if you're over there on YouTube. Takes a quick second. No, nothing else. You just click the button. Appreciate anybody who's doing that if you're new here. All right, let's jump into this actual performance because the conversation needs to start with the performance of the offense. That's not a surprise. It's not going to come shocking to anybody. It's not good enough, period. And it's in a rut. I think anybody with two eyeballs can see it. You're not scoring points. Because, Raheem Morris talked about this on Monday. We've been talking about this for a little while now. The touchdowns aren't coming, and yards are great. I think they're really good, right? We talked about how this team was a top 5 total yards team for a while. I think they peaked at number 2, right? Well, they're 14th now. They're 25th in EPA. They're 13th in passing, 11th in rushing, which is unacceptable. Great. Middle of the road, kind of average. Well, you're scoring 17 points per game. 28th in the NFL. You're in there with the likes of the New Orleans Saints, team who's blowing it up. The Browns, a team who's just consistently blowing it up. The Raiders, a team who's blowing it up. And the Titans, a team who just picked number 1 in the NFL draft. You scored 5 passing touchdowns. All from Michael Penix. 5 passing touchdowns. You're 32nd in the NFL. 7 rushing touchdowns. That's 29th in the NFL. You have 12 total touchdowns. That's 29th in the NFL. It's not good enough. And I know that one of the big conversation topics was that Kirk Cousins is going to come on the field. It's Michael Penix's fault and whatever. And if you didn't hear it, I read it on Twitter. I saw it from folks, and it's just something that people say, right? Well, Sunday showed us that Kirk Cousins does not seem to be an answer of any kind. And it was very disappointing for a lot of reasons. The biggest, of course, is that you lose, right? The purpose of a backup quarterback is not to come in and be the starter level player necessarily. It's somebody who comes in and the level doesn't drop off to a point where you're not moving the football, to where it's not a complete and total beatdown, to where 5 of your first 6 possessions, not including a kneel down before halftime, end in 3 plays or less. You get over midfield and the drive stalls out and you have to kick a field goal. You had 11 first downs. You had 2 first downs in the first half. 2 first downs. How is that possible? How is that possible? You had 11 first downs in the game against the Dolphins. I understand you're beat up. I understand there are some injuries. I understand you're playing without your starting quarterback. I understand Drake London was banged up. Jesse Bates left the game at one point. Look, Jalen Walker didn't play in this game. Divine Diablo didn't play in this game. Billy Bowman didn't play in this game. I get all those things. You still have Bijan frickin' Robinson in the backfield. You have Tyler Algier in the backfield. You have, by the unit that came into this season, starting the season, a fully healthy offensive line. And you're going up against the worst run defense in the NFL. And you get 45 yards. Objectively, you should have been able to turn around and hand the ball off and let them go. I understand it's the NFL. It's not always that simple, right? Sometimes it is. When you have a rushing attack that is that potent, or should be, it should be that simple. And you failed on first down, you failed on second down, and that's why you had an 18% conversion rate on third down. You had 4 attempted fourth down conversions, you failed on 2 of them. That's terrible. It's terrible. You didn't complete a third down conversion until the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter. You were outgained by 125 yards. 65 of those yards, those came in the end of the game. In the final drive of the game, that touchdown drive, when you were down 31 points. It's unbelievable to me how bad the offense looked in this game. But look, I'm frustrated. Of course, I'm frustrated. A lot of people are frustrated. And I think I'm just reciprocating my frustrations to everybody, you know? And it's your lifeblood. The lifeblood of this team is running the football. And the fact that you were not able to do that is crazy to me. And of course, there are other things that are involved in this. But it also comes back to the fact that you only held the ball for 22 minutes of the game. The Dolphins hit that in the first half just about. They held the ball for 19 minutes in the first half. So before anybody says this is all in the offense, it's only the offense. The defense absolutely had a role to play in this loss too. A very prominent role in this loss. Let's put that out there. But it's frustrating. And when you have a rushing attack that is that bad, you have to look at everything else that shouldn't be that bad. There's no reason it's that bad. But you don't have the man beaters on the outside right now. Darnell Mooney is not playing good enough football. And then when Drake London doesn't play, you don't have anybody else. I mean, Kyle Pitts is good for this offense if the other guys are playing at a high level. I put out an article earlier today just highlighting the performances that he's had recently, and he's had good performances. He has, but he's not at this point in time, somebody who can be a game breaker for you. He is an underneath option who has found a good role for himself. He's on pace to have the best season he's had since his rookie year, and he deserves a pat on the back, and he deserves that acknowledgement for that. But this offense, besides Bijan Robinson, if Drake London's not playing, nothing. And there's not a lot of creativity in the play calling. I'm not going to come in here and criticize play calling. I am not qualified enough to come in here and tell an offensive coordinator in the NFL that he doesn't know what he's doing. Obviously, I'm not going to come in here and do that. I can come in here and say whatever is happening is not working. Anybody with eyeballs can say that, but I'm not going to come in here and tell him exactly what he's doing wrong, because look, he's more qualified to do it than I am. And I'll freely admit that. And I think most people, if they don't freely admit that, it's still a reality. But the proof is in the pudding here. It's not working. Something is not working. And there's still time for them to get back on track. But you're running out of time. You're running out of time. And it's getting very, very frustrating here. I mean, and it comes back to the rushing attack. It all comes back to the rushing attack. Raheem Morris said as much. I mean, it's the fact that you have the best running back in the NFL, the best player in the NFL. And I'm not trying to throw that back in his face, because I agreed with the fact that he is the NFL's best player. It's just if he's getting hit in the backfield, it can't really do too much. I mean, he and Tyler Algier, it's inexplicable to me that they can combine for 13 carries and 29 yards. And it's the case of this whole season. It all comes back to the fact that if the Falcons fail to reach 100 yards on the ground, they're 0-3. In 2 of those games, you got blown out. The other one came at home in week 1 against the Bucs. When you do hit that 100-yard mark, you're 3-1. You're 3-1. You know, it's frustrating. And I know all of you are frustrated. I know I'm frustrated. And I just know this is just the situation that kind of people kind of feel themselves in. All right. I want to give a quick shout out here. Dictator Jace. Interesting name, but he's a new member, and I wanted to give him a quick shout out. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you for hitting that subscribe button and joining us here. I'm going to jump into some of your comments here, and then we're going to talk about the playoffs and one other thing that I saw from this game that I think really needs to be said. I'm not going to try to say your name. I'm sorry. Tapu, something like that. All right. How much of this, he's over there on YouTube. He says, how much of this is scheme and how much is execution? Because the run blocking was bad for 2 straight games. It's execution. I think a lot of it comes down to execution. And I was talking to people who know a lot more than I do. I tend to do that. I talk to people who are smarter than me. I think everybody should. It's a good piece of advice. But it's execution. A lot of it is. And it comes down to some of your best players. You know, that 4th down and 1 play against the San Francisco 49ers. And it was criticized for a lot of reasons, right? And you have a 49ers player who's coming, Chase Lucas, who says that he knew the play was coming, which is complete dog water. They had never called the play before, first off. And you can go back and look, they hadn't run the play in the game either. It's just that Drake London had a tell with how he was running across the field. And when he runs all the way across the field and he does a little breaker on the outside, when they snap the ball, the corner only has this side of the field that he has to guard. And he can just keep running with Drake London because it was man coverage, and he just jumps in front of him and he makes the play on the ball. The ball was on the money. It was a great throw. Drake was in position to make the catch and get the first down. It's just what he was supposed to do is run, clear the formation, and turn and start sidestepping. And if you're sidestepping, that opens up the rest of the field. And that quick moment of hesitation slows down the corner. And it creates just a little bit more separation for Mike to throw the ball into. That's the biggest difference here. That's called execution. That is on the players. It's on the players. And when I talked to all the players after the game, they said the exact same thing. They have to execute better. And when Raheem Morris addressed the media on Monday, he said that this team just needs to execute. It's not about the play calling. It's not about the X's and O's. This is what they're saying. I know a lot of people are talking about the scheme and the creativity and stuff like that. Again, I'll leave that to the football savants. I'll let them kind of dig into that kind of stuff. I just know that the execution is not good enough and that it needs to be better because it's shown that it's capable of being great. It's shown that. Players just need to be better. And we shall see if they can actually get to that level. Austin, Georgia Bully Dog says Bijan beat the Bills, not the Falcons. Bijan Robinson is on the Falcons. So, no, I'm not. Bijan's a great player. Bijan's also an Atlanta Falcon. If Bijan Robinson is the reason that they beat the Buffalo Bills, then he is the reason the Falcons beat the Buffalo Bills. And the Falcons also beat the Buffalo Bills. There are also a lot of defenders who played that game too. And shut down the reigning MVP. So that's it's not one player. It's never one player. It never has been, and it never will be. That's just not the NFL. Alex, here we go, says it seems like Z-Rob doesn't tailor the offense to players' strength. He just has this offense and expects anyone to run it. MPJ and Kirk are 2 different quarterbacks with different skill sets. One important thing to keep in mind here is the fact that Kirk Cousins was not taking starter snaps until later in the week. It's because Penix didn't progress the way he was supposed to. They had expressed a lot of confidence. Penix himself had expressed some confidence that he was going to be the starting quarterback on Sunday. He said that verbatim on Wednesday. That's his mentality, and that's the way he went in. And obviously, players don't always get to decide that fact. But it wasn't until later in the week. And then you also throw in the fact that Drake London was a very late add to the injury report on Saturday. He was he had a very large role in the game plan. He would have a very large role in any game plan that they have in any week, right? And you go from him to Darnell Mooney potentially now jumping into that same role. Casey Washington gets elevated in that way. David Sills gets elevated. And that's kind of where I come back to the fact that this team does not have wide receiver depth. They don't have the wide receiver depth. And I have been harping on that for weeks and weeks, that they do not have wide receiver depth. And when they have those guys, Darnell hasn't been good enough. If he has been healthy, he hasn't been good enough. He really has not made an impact this season. And he was open. Objectively, in his defense, he was open. Kirk just didn't fit him. But, Alex, you can't just flip it on a dime and have an entire new game plan on Sunday morning. right? I mean, it's a very difficult situation that they found themselves in, and you just need your guys to come out and play at a high level. That's what you need them to do. You need them to execute properly, and ultimately they didn't do it, and they got blasted by an NFL football team, a 1-6 NFL football team, I might add. Austin Georgia Bully Dog says the fact that we are 99% chance we are going into the Panthers game 3-6, you won't be feeling any differently now. 99%. I don't think that that's necessarily true. This is still a Falcons team who's shown us what they're capable of doing, right? And this is a group therapy session, right? We're gonna all talk about this. We're all gonna talk about this as much as we can, right? It's like the Falcons fly over there on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I used to do that show all the time, and it was a group therapy session. Get all the feelings out, get all those emotions out. The best way to cope with it. But at the same time, we have absolutely no idea if they're going to lose both of these games. They're not going to be favored in either of them. If they lose both, I won't be surprised. I really won't. But to say 99%, this is the NFL. I guarantee you a lot of people said that there was a 99% chance the Falcons were going to beat the Dolphins. Didn't happen. In fact, the Falcons were bigger favorites over the Dolphins on Sunday than the Panthers, than the Patriots are heading into Sunday's game. It's just the NFL. Crazy things happen. So 99% chance, no. Unlikely, yeah, I'll say that. I will give you that. But the last big thing I want to say here about this game, and then we'll move into some other thoughts here. The defense really misses Divine Diablo. He's really good. He's really good. He's a transformational player to this defense. He is a big reason why Caden Ellis was able to be unlocked. And it's not that Caden Ellis needed unlocking necessarily. He was a really good player. It's just you add somebody into the middle who can do a lot of different things, take away passing lanes, rush the passer, go sideline to sideline, clog up lanes, can do just about everything. He's a big body, big person who's also a freak athlete and has the ball skills of a defensive back. That's not something that is very common in the NFL. Even in the NFL, the highest level, it's not something that you find every day. And the Falcons really missed him. And I want to say that, and I don't want to come around as if I'm being too harsh on JD Bertrand, but JD Bertrand is a massive drop off from what Divine Diablo was providing this defense. And that was painfully clear in the last 2 weeks. And it's also true that you have a really good play caller that you're going up against with Mike McDaniel. And before that, it was Kyle Shanahan. They went right at him from the first play of the game, JD Bertrand. And Falcons just had no answer. But it's also, they said that they were going to do a committee approach. And I asked Raheem about it, and he said it just didn't work out that way. But JD got burned. He got beat a lot. He was a step slow far too often. And you can't lay this, just like I said with Bijan, you can't praise one person for being the only reason that somebody wins a football game. And it's never just one guy is the reason that you lose a football game. But JD Bertrand was, he was in over his head, and he does not need to be out there for every single snap. I think he missed one defensive snap. And if you factor in all of his special team snaps, he took more snaps than anybody else at Mercedes-Benz Stadium that day. And that's not good. You're not going to win a lot of football games that way. And I like JD Bertrand. I think he's a fine player. He's somebody who can come in and play a special teams role. He can have a role on a football team in the NFL, but he does not need to be the starting linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm sorry. I guess just based off of what we've seen now in the last 2 weeks, it's enough of a sample size to know that he is not athletic enough. He does not move fast enough, and he can't recognize plays. When I went back and watched the film of this game, he's sitting there flat-footed a lot. He's reacting just a tick too slow far too often. And you have the play. A perfect example is what happened right there at the buzzer, right before they go in for halftime. And he was so slow reacting to what I think it was Malik Washington. He comes out with an outbreaker, and it was basically, it's just, he was standing there flat-footed, and he couldn't get there. He couldn't get to the boundary, and he got beat. It's tough. It's real tough. All right. I'm going to go roll back into some of these comments here. So I see Jason Greenway 5184 Prize Picks had them losing. Really? Interesting. That'd have been the only one that I've seen. The line that I saw at kickoff was 7. That was BetMGM. I'd seen it fluctuate somewhere around that point. It had gone from 7.5, and maybe it was just post Drake London and stuff like that. I don't know. I did not see that, so I can't attest to it necessarily, but I'll take your word for it, Jason. So I appreciate you dropping in there. Kind of keep on rolling through. Dictator Jace says, "Hi, Scott. Hope the Falcons win the Super Bowl this year, but the coaching and ownership needs to change." Well, if they win a Super Bowl, it certainly won't. And look, I'm not going to say anything about coaching changes or anything like that. I like Raheem a lot. I think that Raheem is a very intelligent coach. I think he can do a lot of things really well. But I think he has made some mistakes. And he's sticking with his guys. He's very loyal, and credit to him for that, I guess. But at the same time, I'll just ask you this. If you were to fire Zach Robinson, to answer your question, if you're to fire Zach Robinson, who are you hiring to call plays? You're not going outside the building. Like that's not on the table. Like that's just not something that happens. And if it does, it'd be unprecedented, and I would be shocked. And I'll put out a story on it, and then it'll get a bunch of views because it is. So I mean, I guess a piece of me hopes that happens. But TJ Yates called plays in the preseason, and those are the 2 games that people had a conniption fit. They freaked out because they're like, "Oh my God, the play calling so bad. Oh, this is awful." Well, it wasn't Zach Robinson. That was TJ Yates. He's a young protege. He's a guy who can come up, and I think he could be a very good play caller here in the future, maybe, but he's a smart guy. But is he ready to call plays in an NFL regular season game? I don't know. But outside of that, there's nobody with NFL play calling experience on this roster. There isn't. So it's Zach Robinson or maybe TJ Yates, but he doesn't have a lot of NFL experience at that. So if you're that comfortable, fine. But it's like, I understand that there's a desire for a pound of flesh. It's common in this business, but the grass is not always greener on the other side. This is just the bed that the Falcons are going to have to sleep in this year. And it's a situation that they've kind of, they didn't inherit, they created it. You reap what you sow here. And Zach's your guy. So Zach is probably the guy who's going to, and they're going to have to go down with the ship at this point. Kind of rolling through here. Tomlin Lieutenant says thoughts on the wide receiver room as a whole. Cut Ray and then Mooney off to a slow start in compared to last year. Yeah. So they cut Ray. There were some, Raheem said it was on-field reasons for the cutting. And Ray was not playing well. That is very clear. He also supposedly had some off-field things that were going on, allegedly. Ultimately, he's cut. He's no longer here. So you need to find somebody else who can step in and play that role. Darnell Mooney is also not playing very well, but you don't have any other options. So he's going to be in there. He's going to be your number 2 receiver. You just desperately need Drake London to stay healthy for the rest of the season. He dealt with a hip. He missed the game on Sunday. He needs to come back and be healthy. This team desperately needs him to be healthy. If he's not, you saw what happened. Not good. But outside of that, it's not great. I love Casey Washington. I think the world of this guy. I want him to do well. Just because I've talked to him several times, and he's just a good guy, and he's easy to root for. But that doesn't win you games in the NFL, unfortunately. You need to go find some winners, and I don't know if this team is now in position to make any deals at the deadline. It's coming up next Tuesday, so 7 days from today, from when we're recording this podcast. I don't foresee the Falcons making any acquisitions. Could they sell? Maybe. Theoretically, we'll have something coming up on that here this week, and you'll have to check that out. But I don't know. It's getting increasingly unlikely that something else happens like that, but we shall see. Derek Hart, 7733, says 34-10 at home. That's not acceptable. If I was blank Monday morning, Ulbrich would have been the interim coach, and Ra and Zach Robinson would be pink slipped. I mean, maybe. I just don't think that. I mean, this is not a move that Arthur Blank generally does. He doesn't like firing coaches midseason. I think he's done it one time. It was Dan Quinn, and it was when there were some very clear reasons why things were happening that way. Historically, he has informed a coach of his decision, or he just makes the decision at the end of the season. I don't think that, barring just a complete collapse, Raheem Morris is not going to be fired. It's not going to happen. I don't think that it will. That's my opinion. I'm also not advocating for it. I'm not advocating against it. He needs to have results, and he understands that. He understands that he needs to start winning games. Playoffs are the expectation for this football team. They absolutely are. As of right now, it's not looking too great. You're still alive. You still have 10 games left. But I'll go back to the thing with Zach Robinson. Who else do you have to call plays? How are you getting better by making that decision? I don't know if you are. You're just going to have to ride it out for a little bit longer. You're going to have to wait to get to a point, in my opinion, that until the end of the season is at the only point that those decisions are going to be made. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we have to expect for the rest of the season. I know people joke and they laugh when I talk about playoffs right now. It's still alive. They're still theoretically alive for the playoffs. Next gen stats, which, I mean, again, grain of salt, it's a statistic, it's a number, it's whatever, but it gives you a quantifiable way of, digesting some of this information. They get a 15% chance of making the postseason right now. That's according to next gen stats. You have 10 games left this season. And as of right now, you're looking up at the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Bears as the teams in front of you as far as the playoff line is concerned. It's because the Cowboys have that tie. The Panthers are 4-4, and they've beat you. The Bears are 4-3. Then on top of that, you have your three wild card teams as of right now. It's the 49ers at 5-3. It's the Rams at 5-2. It's the Lions at 5-2. You're going to have to kick out one of those three teams because you're not beating the Bucs. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're catching up with the Bucs. They sit at 6-2 right now. What is that? 2.5 games or whatever. Season's not on life support, but it's pretty close. You have no margin for error. Fortunately for you, you still play some of the teams that are in front of you, mainly the Panthers you play, the Rams you play, some other teams that you're with, like the Cardinals and other stuff like that. We'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that you got to get off this roller coaster of performances. That's Raheem's words. It's Bijan Robinson's words. A lot of people have said that to me, and I've heard it a lot of different ways, right? And you can talk about it, scream about it, whatever. You got to get off the roller coaster. You have to find some level of consistency, and you still have time to do it. It's just really, really running out. The next two games, I believe, are going to dictate the season, right? It's a road trip to the Patriots, who have won, 5 games in a row, their last 2 games by 18.5 points per game. And it's the Colts in Berlin. That's a team who's scoring 33 points per game right now and just cooking people. And, I mean, geez. Jonathan Taylor. We'll worry about the Colts later, but it's like Jonathan Taylor. Oh, my God. What that guy is doing right now is unbelievable. But, look, it's the NFL. Crazy things happen. Maybe they throw 5 turnovers. Who knows? You have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I'm not going to predict them to win either of those games necessarily, but say you do. Say you split and you go 4-5. Okay, like that's manageable. It's not great, but it's manageable. Yeah, you lose both your 3-6, and season's probably a wash because you're not winning out. You would effectively need to win out for the rest of the way. But say you do split, you have 8 games left. You'd have to win 6 games there? Panthers, Saints, Jets, Seahawks, Bucks, Cards, Rams, Saints. Panthers, that's a team who beat you by 30 points. Saints, you play them twice. I always assume it's a split. I would assume that you beat the Panthers. There's no way you lose to the Panthers twice. You cannot allow that. And if you lose to the Panthers and you lose both of these games, that's a situation where then Raheem would be fired. I could not believe that he would lose 5 games in a row in the middle of the season and just completely wash the rest of the way. That's one of those situations where I think it would happen. But then you go Panthers, Saints, Jets. You should win all 3 of those games. Then it's the Seahawks. Tough game. Tough defense. Tough game. You maybe, we'll see. Bucks, that'll be tough. Cards, depends. Depends on what team shows up. The Cardinals have been banged up brutally by injuries. They've been playing without their starting quarterback. They've lost several running backs this season. Depends. I think they can win that game. Then it's the Rams. That'll be very difficult, especially because Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and that team get really good when you get into December. And then it's the Saints to finish the season. And there is no team who loves beating the Falcons to end the season more than the Saints. They'll get up for that game. You know, it's not like the Saints are going to be on the train heading out to Cancun at that point. I mean, they're not going anywhere, but they will not take that game lightly, right? But this is a Falcons team who entered the season expecting to contend. And you're 8 weeks in. You're searching for answers and time is running out. And I'm off the playoff train. I came into the season saying that this is a team who can make the playoffs. This is a team who absolutely has that capability. I don't think they do anymore. And unless they prove me wrong, great. I hope they do. 15% chance by next gen stats. Again, it's a number. It just helps you quantify it. It's just increasingly unlikely. I just don't believe in them. I don't believe they can do it. I don't think that Michael Penix has not shown me a lot. Is that his fault? Is that Zach Robinson's fault? I don't know. But you've lost 4 games, especially to 2 teams who I don't think you should have lost to. And you lost those 2 games by a combined 54 points. That's just a playoff team doesn't do that twice. A playoff team maybe once. Because, I mean, you have a mulligan, that's fine. But a playoff team doesn't lose 2 of those games. It just doesn't happen. And until they prove differently, I don't buy it. And it's just very difficult. It's the worst team on your schedule. And this is where, and I asked Raheem about this. I said, do you underestimate your opponents? Did you think that in the locker room they underestimate opponents? He said no. I don't buy that. I don't believe it. I think that they are underestimating their opponents, and that's what happened. Because I'm not going to go too deep in it. I just think there's that sort of mentality that's going in, and it's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate because I like Raheem, I like the staff, and I think that it's just a difficult spot for them to find themselves in. Let's see. James MP0 says, "Did you see the interview with Rich McKay on 680 The Fan today? They weren't kind to him, that's for sure." No, I actually heard that when I was in the car. It was a very uncomfortable conversation. I think they were a little off base with a couple of comments and a couple of things in general. But I'm not going to go too deep in Rich McKay. I mean, a lot of those are just tinfoil hat type of thoughts and conspiracies and everything else. I'm not going to go too deep into that. I keep on rolling through. Yeah, they gave McKay the biz today. Austin George Bully Dog says, problem is we run one scheme formation on offense. This is the NFL that won't cut it. With these with these playmakers, we got trash coaching. I mean, I've seen a lot of opinions on that. I've seen a lot of them are not good. And again, I'm not going to go too deep into X's and O's. I've been critical of the offense, and I'm just going to look specifically at these results. The players are good enough, and ultimately that's what it should come down to. It's people said the Jimmys and the Joes, not the X's and O's. You still need to set up your players enough to find success. And I don't know if they're doing that. I don't think that they are necessarily, but again, I'm not going to get into X's and O's. I think former quarterbacks and people like that who can comment on that stuff, like Kurt Warner and Dan Orlovsky or whatever, they're fully entitled to do that, and they're entitled to their opinion. They know more than I do, and I would defer to their opinion on that matter, just in general. I just know that the numbers are not good, and you're not winning games, and that's pretty blatantly obvious to me and to everybody else. Albert says, the goal is playoff. We have the players. Yeah, the goal is playoff. They entered the season with the goal of the playoffs. I heard it stated 1,000 times. I mean, it was the mantra that this team is going to go to the postseason. This is a team who hasn't been to the postseason since 2017. That's a long time. That's the second longest streak in the NFL. It's you and the Jets and the Panthers. Is that the company that you really want to be keeping? Falcons haven't even had a winning record. We talked to AJ Terrell in the locker room. He's never been to the postseason. He's been here. He's on his second contract. He's never been to the postseason. It's unbelievable. It's crazy to think that. Grady Jarrett went to the postseason in his third season, and now he's probably close to retiring. He just signed a big old contract with the Bears. He didn't go back after his third season. It's been a long time for the Falcons. And it doesn't feel like this season is the one where they're going to get over the hump. Keep on rolling through. Terry Clark says, good afternoon, Garrett. Good afternoon. That's not really afternoon. I mean, it's 6:45 where I am. I mean, it could be earlier. I see Michael comes in here and says, can't use injuries. 49ers lost a lot and they still winning. Yeah, I mean, teams find a way. It's the NFL. These guys make a lot of money. They're pros. That's why I'm not going to use injuries. I don't blame injuries. I don't say that's what it is at all. I say it's contextual information. And it's also the timeliness of these injuries. It does impact it, but it's context. It's not the reason that they lost. The reason they lost is because they were unprepared. And they didn't execute. You were good enough. You're talented enough with the players that you had to go get the job done, and you didn't. That's what it comes down to. Over on Facebook, Gregory comes in and says, they missed number 0, Divine Diablo. But coaches did not adjust with Miami going with 6 offensive linemen to establish the run. This is a copycat league. They saw the 49ers were able to run the ball against us. Yeah, and we asked for him about that, and they didn't adjust well enough. They didn't do a good enough job, point blank. I mean, that is going to be something that the Falcons are going to see until they stop it. And I would say that a lot of that is the way that the Dolphins are constructed. It's just very unfortunate that he is very similar, Mike McDaniel, to Kyle Shanahan. Ran under his system, right? They coached together for over a decade. They went to a Super Bowl together. I mean, they coached for a long time. And that's the scheme that he brought to Miami. Now, of course, he's adopted and he's evolved with it and everything else. The run scheme specifically is something that is very similar. The rest of everything is all morphed and everything else is a little bit different. But that's he builds the personnel so that he's able to do that. But this is a copycat league, and you're going to see other teams do that against them until they prove that they can stop it. You know, until they can prove that, then we'll see. We'll keep on rolling through. I see a lot of people coming in with the fire Raheem comments. I mean, I'm not going to advocate for the firing of a coach. You also have to remember I cover this team on a beat, and I have to talk to these guys every week. So please don't put me in that position. I'm frustrated. The fan side of me is frustrated. The reporter side of me is trying to keep a level head as best I can. Jeff Holton says, at this point, I hope we don't win many more games so we can start over with the new staff. This one's not working. I will never root against the Falcons. I don't think anybody should ever root against their own team. I think people who root against their own team for draft capital or whatever, I think it's foolish. And that's just my opinion. I hate that kind of mentality. You can find talent at any point in the draft. You just have to have the right person to do it, right? Yeah, there are great teams who stay great for a long time because they draft well, they sign the right people, and they're good enough in free agency. Maintains that level. And they're well coached. And great organizations stay great, and they don't have to tank. Bad organizations have to tank. Bad organizations encourage losing games to fire coaches or whatever else. Falcons haven't been a great organization here as of late. They just haven't. I just harped on how they haven't been to the playoffs since 2017. Long time. They haven't had a winning record in that sense, and it's in that time frame. They're about to have their third head coach if they end up moving on from Raheem. No, excuse me, their 4th head coach in that time. It's brutal. Oh, Keon White just got traded. How about that? Patriots trading Keon White. I will put something out on that. Former Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. So that actually feeds in multiple spots. Because, of course, I also covered the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. But we'll move on. All right. Let's keep on rolling through. Trenton comes in, says, "Hey, Garrett, haven't been on in a while. Let my membership go. I have been down since the 49ers lost. The Dolphins lost, kicked while down. I've lost all momentum on this year." I know a lot of fans have. People left the stadium with about, I don't know, 13 minutes to go in the game, 12 minutes to go in the game. When they scored the touchdown and they went up 31 points or whatever, it was over and people left. And I know a lot of people were very upset, but glad you jumped back into the membership, Trenton. Welcome in tonight. Glad to have you this evening. Let's keep on rolling through. Last big thing, I do want to update the starters, and then I'm going to try to get to one or two more questions, and then we shall see. The big one was the fact that Jordan Fuller, remember the big one, but the positive one is that Jordan Fuller did return to action on Sunday. He was activated. Good for him, I guess. He jumps in. He was a reserve player. He played a little bit. I think he had a lot of special team snaps, and that's kind of the role he's going to have. And he stepped in late in the game, and of course he filled in for the injured Jesse Bates, which is actually going to get me into the next thing. Jesse Bates, it's a day-to-day injury. He's dealing with an ankle stuff. They said that they don't consider it to be serious, and of course you have to speak a little bit of Raheem ease, I guess you could say. He's been a bit evasive in the past, just in general, about his the injury designations of players. Just based off the way he talked about this one, I would assume that Jesse Bates should be fine for Sunday. We shall see. Injury reports will come out on Wednesday, and we'll track that as we go along. But of course, it is a long injury list here for the Atlanta Falcons, so buckle up. Billy Bowman, he missed his third consecutive game. He is optimistic that, or Raheem is optimistic that he could return on Sunday. He's been dealing with a soft tissue issue. Those can be kind of tricky, just the hamstring, but Jalen Walker is also kind of dealing with, he is dealing with something similar. He's dealing with it in his groin. I'm worried that it's the same groin that he injured during training camp. That has a tendency of kind of flaring up and coming back down, and, not great. But maybe we'll see him. He's considered day to day. He is not, neither of those guys have practiced here, I believe, in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's been a while for those guys. I mentioned Jesse Bates already, who's day to day. Zach Harrison missed on Sunday as well. He's a very important piece to this defensive line. He's somebody who's going to get in and get you into that rotation. He leads this team in sacks, so they really need him. He's big, he's athletic, he can move all over the defensive line, and he was missed on Sunday. Drake London, of course, he is the late scratch on Saturday. He was added to the inactive list. He was added to the injury report with the questionable designation late in the week. He missed on Sunday. He was desperately missed on the outside. We shall see with him. He said he was considered day to day. He was somebody who should be practicing at least in a limited capacity during the week. Same can be said about Michael Penix, as he's dealing with a knee injury, of course, with the bone bruise. We shall see what actually ends up happening with him throughout the course of this week. But there was optimism last week. I think some of it's pain tolerance and mobility and stuff like that. But TBD on Michael Penix. And the last one is Storm Norton. Of course, he's dealing with that ankle injury. I expect he could be back this week. There's a good chance that does happen, but he still needs to be activated. And I'd be curious to see who actually gets deactivated and moved off of the active roster. My guess would be Michael Jarrell, who was in a healthy scratch on Sunday. So I think he's kind of, Jack Nelson was the swing tackle on Sunday that a lot of people didn't realize that fact. Storm Norton will come back. Remains to be seen if he's going to come in and start. But we shall see with that. I think he's been a full participant in practices since he was reactivated not reactivated, but designated to return last Wednesday. So from there, we shall see what actually ends up happening. It's going to be something to follow. So might as well give me a follow at GChapATL. I'll be up at Flowery Branch this week. And we will give you the latest on all of that. Terry comes through, says, "Too bad we can't tank." I'll take a couple more questions. So if you drop some in here, I'll try to jump on some of these before we wrap up the show today. If you want to jump right to the front of the line, super chats are always welcome. If you do that, then that'll get you right to the top. Terry says, "Too bad we can't tank. Only makes the Rams back-to-back Super Bowl contenders. LOL, Jesus." I don't know about that for the Rams. I mean, maybe. How much more do you think Matt Stafford has in the tank? I don't know. I do know that they'll have a little bit of extra motivation come the end of the season when they actually play the Falcons. it's middle of December, end of December. We talked about that a moment ago, but hopefully it doesn't bottom out for the Falcons. If it does, then you're really hoping James Pierce continues to evolve and become a really important piece of this defense, which you have. I mean, he's playing well. It's not showing up on the stat sheet, but that also helps you get Xavier Watts as well. So we'll see. And it's just hopefully that doesn't turn into a top 10 pick or anything like that. But again, far too soon to worry about any of that stuff. Far too soon for that. Scott Hudson, see, Georgia Tech is a much happier coverage, I'm sure. Yeah. It is a much happier coverage. It definitely is. That's a team who's 8-0 for the first time since 1966. Follow me on Twitter. You know that I kind of go back and forth, and I cover them for 24/7 Sports. So if you're a Georgia Tech fan, make sure to give me a follow as well. I do a lot of stuff with them. Says, I like our coaches, but between injuries and play calling, it feels like we are just re-rolling the last decade of mediocrity. I said mediocreness, but mediocrity. Yeah. It is not in a good spot, and the thing is, this is why I don't believe in tanking. I think the tanking is silly. It doesn't work. You're just as likely to bust on somebody in the top 10 as you are in the top 20. Good teams find good players. That's just what it comes down to. Good front offices. And some people call it a crapshoot, and some people don't like that, but kind of is historically. You don't know what guys are going to be like when they get to the league, when they become professionals, etc. But good front offices find the good players. But that's why I don't think that's what helps. And to your point, you're re-rolling the last decade of mediocrity. Well, losing organizations lose. And it's very, very difficult to break out of that. You see the Colts are doing it this year. You see the Lions have recently done it. But generally, those are organizations who've lost. But the Colts, I mean, hell, they went through decades of winning. Johnny Unitas back in the day when they were in Baltimore. You have Peyton Manning when they were in the back in the late 90s, early 2000s, up to the early 2010s. Then you go to Andrew Luck. So I can't really call them a losing organization. The Irsay family has done a very good job there. Just recently, they've kind of struggled and they haven't really gotten off the mat. But you go to the Texans, you go to the Falcons to some degree, the Jags. It's hard to get up off the mat. It's really, really difficult, and it's also just because this is a very difficult league, and it's just kind of the way the life in the NFL is, right? All right, but that's where I'm going to finish up the show. I wish I could have done it on a more positive note, but there's not a lot to be positive about. That's just kind of the situation right now. But I appreciate everybody who jumped in. Obviously, we had hundreds of people across all platforms. So thank you so much. If you are not subscribed, make sure to just click the button. It takes 2 seconds. We don't send you anything. We don't harass you. You don't get email notifications, texting, nothing. So it takes 2 seconds, and it really helps us, and we really appreciate you. If you're first time here, make sure to set a reminder, man. We do this every single Tuesday, every single Thursday. We talk Atlanta Falcons football for however long we end up going. Sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. Sometimes it's not quite so long. But we really appreciate all of you who jump in here as long as you do. But Scott and Nick, they're going to be going live at 8:30 every Monday and Wednesday. But the next one, of course, coming up tomorrow morning. So make sure to check that out. But like I said, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you would. Maybe drop a comment. Do whatever you can. Help us with that algorithm. Share it with your friends. We love talking Atlanta Falcons football. But my name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman, and we will see you again on Thursday, hopefully with a little bit more good news to talk about as we preview a Patriots game that's going to be difficult. We'll see what they can do. But till then, let's go Falcons.